Hey, what's up, y'all? My name is Andrew Arango. I am a professional musician. I am super old. I'm 37, and I've been a professional musician for the last, I guess, 20 years, 21 years. My first paying gig was when I was 16, and I've been working ever since as a musician, solely as a musician. Sometimes when I was in my early 20s and I was living in New York, I was a struggling musician. I would get like odd jobs here and there, but for the most part, my first job, non-musician job, was when I was like 23. So I think that goes to show that having a career in music is possible. It's totally possible. I am going off the cuff. I wrote a simple little list. If this video gets a lot of views and there's a lot of requests, then I will write a book about it. But for now, I think just 10 simple facts about how to be a working musician should do. So a little bit about me before I start. A little bit about So a little bit about me. Like I said, I've been a musician since I was a kid. I am a classically trained and jazz trained piano player. I did a lot of really cool things in New York. I've been all around the world on other people's dimes. So, and I've been a teacher for the last 12 years. So, let's start. Okay, 10 things to do to be a working, successful musician. Number one, know how to read music. I know that's triggering to hear. And technically, no, you don't have to know how to read music to be a working musician. There are plenty of people out there in the world who don't know how to read music, and they're multimillionaires. Okay, so obviously, it's it's very, very possible to be successful and not know how to read music. But here's the thing: reading music is like reading in general. Can you survive and not know how to read? Yeah. For more time than not, people didn't know how to read, right? Only, back in the day, only people in the clergy and royalty, very, very high elite people knew how to read, and for the most part, the common man did not know how to read, and it was still possible. There were still geniuses, fabulous works of art, amazing works of mathematics and sciences, So obviously, knowing how to read isn't a must. But here's the thing: it's so easy. Okay. I mean, do you need to know how to read in general to survive? No, you don't. How easy is life knowing how to read? I mean, just imagine anything you do, sending a text, reading a lovely card, writing something, reading signs on the freeway, just like everything. Just how easy is life when you know how to read? So I remember, doing a gig in New York when I was, I don't know, 25. And this guy, and he's still my friend to this day, Benji. What's up, Benji? And he's a fabulous guitar player. He's from Japan. Didn't know a word of English. I didn't know any Japanese. And it didn't matter because we were trained the same way. We both knew harmony. We both knew jazz. We both knew music. We both knew how to read music. And, that's all we did. That's all we went off of was the vibe of each other. And we hit it off, and I loved his sound and he loved mine, and we meshed really well, and we're friends to this day. So, knowing how to read is just so influential. It's so powerful. Me as a teacher, I tell the students and the kids, like, look, I'm going to teach you how to read music. That's the whole point of these piano lessons. And, the goal is to put anything in front of your face and just start playing it. I mean, wouldn't that be awesome? I mean, wouldn't that be a wonderful goal? I mean, a wonderful ability to just put anything in front of your face and just start playing, or just start, you know what I mean? I mean, just the way you do a book. You open up any book, you don't have to practice reading a book, do you? You don't have to memorize it, do you? A lot of people, they'll try to memorize songs, which is fine, but it's kind of, I mean, you shouldn't have to be able to do that. Just the way you read a book, you should just be able to put music in front of your face and just read it. That is so good for you. And it'll make you more money because you're teaching people how to read. It'll also make you more money because not everyone is gonna go based off their ears. So if you're getting hired by a professional, a director, and you don't know the music, and they're gonna tell you, it's a 2-5-1 in the key of G, and then they're gonna write on one line on the very top, like the introduction, right? and you don't know how to read it. So then you're forced to what? Then you got to air it out and stuff like that when you could have just sight read it and just had it perfectly the first time. So, and if you don't know how to do that and you have to air it out, go home and practice it, that's fine. There's nothing against that. It's not against the law. But you technically are slowing down the band. You're slowing down yourself. You're slowing down others. And it would have been a lot faster had you known how to read. So if you don't know how to read, it's okay. There's no issue with that. But life would be so much easier if you just knew how to read. Okay, number 2, be multi-talented. Learn every instrument you can. Learn every genre you can. You'll never know what will pay the bills. When I was a kid, I was a jazz-trained pianist and I was a classically trained pianist. Okay, but my dad was from Colombia, and so he would always talk to me about Latin music. He would say, son, learn salsa, learn merengue, rumba, cha-cha-cha, and I was like, no, I'm American. I don't even speak Spanish. Like, why would I do that? I mean, I don't really like that music. I don't, I don't, it's just not my culture. It's not my thing. But, to make my dad happy, I joined a salsa band when I was 16, and that opened up so many doors. Within the year, I was playing with Brenda K. Starr. You know that Brenda K. Starr, she sings that song, I still believe someday you and me. Like, she was a Grammy Award singer. I played with Nestor Torres, and I played with Pete Escovedo. I played with a lot of really cool people. I was 16 years old, playing with Grammy Award-winning musicians because I was introduced to the right people, because I took that step of, it was honestly a really brave step for me. Like, I was scared. I didn't speak Spanish. I didn't know that world. And I was full of all these people I didn't know. And I was like, how's this going to work out? But, but fortunately for me, it worked out really well. And, when I went to college, when I went to college, I had been playing salsa for about 5 years at this point. And, I remember joining this salsa band, and I knew more than the actual teacher. And then when there was that first lesson, that first class, and then the teacher was like, "Okay, everyone, listen to him." And then he left. I think he went to go to his office and get drunk every time. I literally think that's what he did. But he left the whole thing up to me, and I was like 19, 20, teaching the college class and how to do this salsa music stuff. And then when I was 19, I joined this other salsa band, and we were playing twice a week at the club. I was getting paid good money, and I was like, wow, this is like this knowing this niche music is like the bulk of my income, so there's been moments where the bulk of my performance income was from playing salsa music. When I became a teacher, I know the elementaries on how to play guitar, and I know how the elementaries on how to sing, but I really wasn't confident enough, and I was too hard on myself with my ability to do those things. And but I worked for this lady, and she was all about the money. So she was like, if you can kind of do it, I'm going to say that you teach it. And I was like, that's kind of lying, but okay. But what I realized was that I was better than I thought. And then I also realized that don't short yourself. There were times as a teacher where money was low, or times were, troubling, and I lost some clients. And there was at one time in my career where all of my students were either vocal students or guitar students, and I'm mainly a pianist. So I remember thinking, like, gosh, all because, that my ex-boss really pushed me and told people that I teach piano and vocal and guitar. So even to this day, I teach mostly piano, but sometimes a student will come to me and say, hey, I'm joining the school play. I'm going to have an audition. Will you help me work on this vocal piece? And I'm like, sure, yeah, I can do it. And I do it with a lot more confidence because I've done it now, so, and when I threw piano recitals for my students, it made me feel really cool that we had piano students, vocal students, singers, and then people who were playing piano and singing, people who were playing guitar and singing. And I'm just like, man, I taught them all of that. Like, look at this whole well-rounded, recital. It was almost like a concert. And it was because I taught all of it. So, I mean, the point is to be multi-talented. You know, be put your finger in every pot. I don't know. Did I just make up that saying? But, I mean, the point is, it's just that, you know, and I mean, what did Darwin say? It's not the smartest who survive. It's not the strongest who survive. The ones who survive are the most adaptable. And isn't that fucking true? Didn't COVID teach us that? The ones who adapt were the ones who survive. You know, so, yeah, be multi-talented. That's a huge one. That'll save your life. Okay, 3, don't make enemies, build bridges. Oh my gosh, you guys. First of all, we're in music, we're musicians, okay? We're artists, we're performers, okay? We need to lean on each other. You cannot go around thinking that you're better than the jazz players, or that you're better than the rock and roll players, that you're better than the singers, or that you're better than the instrumentalists. We're all in this together. We all lean on each other. My first main gig in New York, I was like 23, something like that. My first main gig was from a singer, was from an actress. I didn't know no actresses. I knew actresses because, you know, as a piano player, living in New York, you meet a lot of Broadway singers who need a piano player. They need an accompanist. You know, when they're taking voice lessons, they need an accompanist. You know, so I knew so many singers and dancers because of my willingness to be an accompanist. You know, again, spreading, you know, being multi-talented, being multifaceted, you know, being adaptable. And so I remember this singer, she came up to me, and shout out to Danielle Fulton. She's an amazing Broadway star. Look her up. She does only amazing things. And so she came up to me and she goes, hey, we're looking for a musical director for this off-Broadway show. And she said, do you want to do it? And I was like, sure. I had never done it before. I've never been a musical director before, but I mean, I know I'm a hell of a piano player, and this is the city to fucking do it, right? So I was like, yeah, okay, I'll do it. And I didn't think anything of it. And, you know, it's funny because, you know, when you have goals, you try and try and try, and you really aim for you keep your eye on the prize. And then out of left field is your opportunity, not, you know, not the direction you were looking at, but out of left field. And you just got to be ready, you know? And so I remember, like, the next day or two, I get a call like at 7 a.m, and at that time I was living in Brooklyn. It was so far, it was almost in Long Island. And the director was like, hey, you know, Danielle told me that, you know, you're available to do this job. Can you do it? And I was like, yeah, I can do it. Like, sure, why not? And so he was like, okay, meet me in Times Square in like an hour. And I was like, okay, sure. And shit, 20 degree weather. I had barely any clothes on because I had just woken up. I had met him in the middle of Times Square, and I signed the contract right there on a trash can. That's not the way I envisioned getting awesome jobs in New York. But it happened, and then we wound up doing 2 seasons of the show, and it was amazing. And I actually got nominated for an Adelco Award for Best Musical Director. All because that one actress, that one singer was like, hey, do you want to do this job? You know, we're looking for a pianist or a musical director. And I was like, sure. So don't make enemies. Don't think you're better than anyone. Don't do any of that stuff. I have met musicians that just straight up look down on certain people. And it's like, why would you do that? People already look down on us as musicians, as actors, as performers, as artists. We have to lean on each other. People already look down on us. People already don't want to pay us what we're worth. You know, it's sad because we're talented. We have talent. And that's a whole lot more talent than other people have. So don't let them be the ones to decide how much our talent is worth, you know? And when we stick together, we're stronger. I can't tell you just how many times a singer, you know, gave me the good word for a good job, or some actress or actor gave me just the other day. You know, my friend who I knew years ago in college, he was like, and he's an actor, he's barely a singer. I don't even know him, you know, but I just kept up with him and just always keep things cordial, always be nice, always, you know, just, hey, how you doing? Good to hear from you. You know, I like his photos on Facebook, whatever. And then the other day he was like, hey, it's been a long time. You know, I work for Yale now for their arts college, and we're going to China. Would you like to audition? I was like, fuck yeah, I'd like to audition. So, I mean, I'm not a performing musician anymore, but the point is that I got the invitation. I got the invitation to audition for a job in China. You know what I mean? And of course, if I had gotten it, well, if I had even auditioned, I didn't even audition. But the point is that I got the invitation to audition, from this guy I knew 20 years ago. But what he remembered about me was that I was really nice and I was really talented. That's all it motherfucking takes. Be friends with them, let them see what you got, and just keep things cordial. You never know what you're going to be invited to. It made me feel good because, I've been only a teacher for the last 12 years, And so sometimes I'm just like, do we even have what it takes to be a musician anymore? And then as soon as I thought that, literally that guy was like, do you want to audition? And I was like, wow, that's awesome. Thank you so much, Okay, I could keep going on and on and on. But anyway, number 4, know your strengths, know your weaknesses. Absolutely. Don't say you can do a jazz gig and you're a rock musician and you can only play power chords. If you're a rock musician, you can only play power chords. That's amazing. Build your repertoire. If you only know jazz music, that's fine. Build your repertoire. I should make this point, just build your repertoire. But the point is that know what you're good at and know what you're not good at. Because you don't want to say yes to a gig and then you're not prepared at all, or you don't want to oversell yourself and then you don't want to undersell yourself. Like when I said I couldn't teach guitar and piano and voice, obviously that wasn't true because there are kids that, that definitely came to me for guitar and voice. Now there's a balance because, I was able to teach it, but I was only able to teach to a certain level. So I was only able to teach like beginning and intermediate guitar and voice, which is just fine. You tell the parents that. You tell the parents, hey, I can teach them voice if you want me to. I have no problem with that. But just so you know, I can only teach them to a certain level because I only can sing to a certain level. I can only play this instrument to a certain level. You can't teach what you can't play. So if you can't play something, don't even think that you can teach it. The point of being a great teacher is to help your student be better than you. That's what a good teacher does. So you would think you would lose those clients or lose those students, but they were like, "Oh, okay, yeah, that's fine." And then they were my student for 2 years, and then they stopped, and then they went to someone who could teach them how to advance into an advanced level. So I mean that happens all the time. You don't want to say, there's nothing more embarrassing than saying you can do something and then you get to the gig and realize that you can't, and then other people realize you can't because they think you're a liar. Now they don't trust you. And so now they don't want to hire you again. And also it's a community. Like I said, it's a web of connections. One person says one bad thing about you. That's it. And if they lie, then it's not going to work. Then it's not going to go against you. It's actually going to go against them. Because if someone says that, oh, don't hire Andrew, he's not a good piano player. Please, okay? Like they're going to say, really? Because I know Andrew and I've done a gig with him and he was amazing. So what the hell are you talking about? So don't worry if you think someone's going to lie and say nasty stuff about you. If it's not true, then it's not true and it's not going to work out for them. But the worst thing would be is if they're talking accurately and they're like, look, I hired this guy for something and he was not good. So know your strengths, know your weaknesses. Number 5, practice. Practice. Music is like science. It's like math. It's something that you can work on for the rest of your life. It's something that it's not something you just master and then that's it. So when I first started taking on students, they would tell me apparently there's like a level system. They're like, oh, what level do you teach them all the way to? Because when my kid was studying in Australia, because I have like international students, when we were in Australia, he went all the way to level 6, and in my mind I was like, what the hell is level 6? Like, there's no levels to music, So what was my point? Oh, practice. Yeah. So I was like, and so I would tell my students, I would tell the parents actually, I would be like, there's no levels to music. Just like there's no levels to math and science. Oh, I'm on level 12 math. Like, What does that even mean? Oh, I'm level 23 advanced in science. Like, okay, what does that mean? So it's like there's no end to studying music. What the hell is my point again? Oh, practice. Yeah. Also, music is a language, and I gotta admit, when it's if you don't use it, you lose it. And you would think that like in a language that's not true, but it actually is true. Because my dad, he's from Colombia. When he came to the United States in 1985, this was before the internet. This was before so much technology stuff happened, and so he missed a lot of the words that were in Spanish. Email. I don't know, Bluetooth and stuff like that. So when he finally retired and moved back to Colombia, he was talking like to this lady at the bank, and he was with his niece, and he was saying so many words in English that the lady at the bank didn't understand, and they was like, and she was saying, "Excuse me, sir, can you speak to me in Spanish?" And my dad was like, "I am speaking in Spanish." But he didn't realize that so many of the words he had learned since 1985 were in English. So he was speaking in Spanglish the whole time, and he thought she would understand. And she's like, "No, there's Spanish words for Bluetooth. There's a Spanish word for email. There's a Spanish word for Wi-Fi." So, and he had to learn. He's still having to learn all these new languages. Point is, if you don't use it, you lose it. So you have to practice. And the other thing is, it's so competitive, especially if you're going to live in Los Angeles, New York City, Miami, Austin, France, Tokyo. I mean, it's so competitive. You have to practice, all right? You're not going to get anywhere not practicing. There's only so much that your good looks and that your charisma and that your popularity can get you. There comes a point where you have to practice. This is why people put their kids in music and or sports, because those are two things that you can't fake. If you're an amazing vocalist or you're an amazing piano player, it's because you put the hours in. If you're amazing at football, basketball, whatever, it's because you put the hours in. If you suck, it's because you don't practice. So, and it's especially if you're trying to be a working musician. If you're going to be a working musician, that means there's a certain kind of excellence or a certain amount of excellence that you have to have. That's like being an athlete. There's a certain amount of excellence you have to have. It's so competitive already. You want to get in that. You want to make it so that that they can't deny what you bring to the table. Right? So, and this is technical. That's all it is. It's your technique. You have to refine your technique. You have to play. I don't mean it literally, but you have to play your instrument, your craft like a fiddle. You know what I mean? Like, it's just, you are just a master at your instrument, whether you're a singer, dancer, musician, whatever. You have to be so on top of yourself. Technically, you just have to work on your technique all the time. Doctors are always studying. They're always the good doctors, right? They're always going to conferences. They're always learning the news, the new advances, the new scientific techniques. People who are the best are always studying. They're always learning. They're always practicing. Just don't ever think that you can make it far. Let's take Madonna, for example. Madonna was someone who wasn't known exactly for her talent, but no one practiced more than Madonna. No one gave their discipline more than Madonna. I remember like watching some documentary a long time ago when she was like in her 20s or 30s, and she ran 16 miles a day. She ran 16 miles a day, and then she went on vocal rest, and then she took voice lessons. She did all that stuff. And so for someone who's not naturally talented, she deserved every bit of success that she got because she worked the hardest. So practice, all right? Practice. And honestly, I hate to sound triggering, but there's kind of no excuse either. I don't care if you have kids. I don't care if you're married. I don't care if you have bills. Look, you want this, you got to go and get it. You got to go and practice. Okay, next one. Know your worth. Yes. Oh my gosh. Please know your worth. How much battery life? Okay. Yeah, you got to know your worth. the other day, actually, I don't know why I said that. It was like last year, but this piano player, she was like, "Are you willing to?" She was asking me if I wanted to do a gig, and she was like, "Would you be willing to accompany like singers at an opera house?" And I said, it depends on how much they would pay." And I'm sure she thought that I was egotistical for saying that. And I think she did, because she told someone that I was egotistical. But what she didn't realize was that I was a performing professional musician at the age of 16. Okay. Now, if I was a newbie, if I was really just breaking out into the musician scene, then yeah, I would have taken any gig that paid. Even if it was free, if I knew it was worth it, like connection wise or whatever, then yeah, I would have done it. But it wasn't that way. I was already a veteran. By the time I was 25, I had already been playing around the world. I had already been playing in New York. I had already been playing for the biggest musicians. And I already had a full-time job teaching. So when she offered me to be an accompanist for some opera singers, and it was a good gig. It was in Jones Hall, downtown Houston. So it was a professional gig. But I said no, unless they pay me like $300 an hour. And I'm not even lying. Like, I do. Nowadays, I don't go out and gig. I don't. The last paying gig I did, I still go out and play for churches because I'm a spiritual person. That's just my personal choice. I like the fact of glorifying the Lord with my talent. That's just my personal thing. But other than that, the last time I did a paying gig that was secular music was 2019. That was 6 years ago, or about to be 6 years ago. And the gig was $300 for 2 hours of work. And I didn't have to bring my piano. And it was pop music. So it was super, super easy. Because when you're a jazz trained musician, you're basically a savant in harmony. So, I mean, no offense to Lady Gaga, no offense to these pop and Bruno Mars, but their music harmonically is the ABCs, is Mary Had a Little Lamb compared to John Coltrane and Miles Davis, right? So, I didn't have to practice. The gig was all I literally had to do was put on my nice clothes and go there. That was literally, and they already had a piano. They already had a grand piano there waiting for me there. Literally, it was so easy. All I had to do was just show up. And that's the only reason why I took it, because I was like, yeah, okay, I'll do that for $300. Know your worth. I will not do it for less than that. I will not perform. I will not, because like I said, people already look down on musicians. So I'm not going to go somewhere and play for a house, for a club full of drunk people and get paid $100. That's some bullshit. It's not happening. So, know your worth. And as a teacher, I've fired people because they had a hard time paying. They would have these fabulous houses. And that's another thing, is that being a teacher, I exclusively teach in certain neighborhoods, not because I'm money hungry and because I want to charge a lot, and it's not even that. What it is I know my fucking worth. I'm sorry, I know my worth, and if I was truly charging my worth, I would charge $1,000 a month, at least $1,000 a month, because that's truly my worth. And so for me to charge $400 a month for an hour and a half of lessons, in my eyes, you're lucky, and you're lucky I'm only charging that, and you're lucky that you're getting that kind of a discount. So people are like, why is it so expensive? And I'm like, you can't afford me. And it has nothing to do with money. You got to know that about that. You got to know that about your worth. Not everyone, it doesn't matter how rich someone is, that doesn't mean that they can afford you. And I'm not talking about money. If they're going to go out and drive their Lexus, they're going to go out and live in their $700,000 home or their $1 million home. They have the audacity to be a doctor or a lawyer or be a CFO or a CEO. And they want to be tripping, talking about, I'm late, talking about how much is piano lessons, or why is it so expensive? Or, if I had to hound them to pay me, they can't afford you. They cannot afford you. And I'm not talking about money. Now, of course, I'm not a shrewd. I teach low income students, but I don't charge them that much either. I charge them like $50, $75 a month, you know, and I tell them to come to my house, right? Because if I have to go to someone's house, I'm going to charge them a gas fee. So, you know, you can make those, and it's okay. That's all right. Get some of the low income students, charge them only $50 a month, $75 a month. Tell them to come to your house. Make it all on Saturday morning. So that means 8 o'clock to 1 o'clock, you're in your house teaching, you know, and then the other days you can go to the richest parts of your city and teach the rich kids. And like I said, it's not because I'm being selfish or being stingy. It's like, oh, I you know, I only want rich people so I can, you know, have, you know, I want to be selfish. I'm only in it for the money. No, it's, I know my worth. Okay. And because I truly know my worth, not even rich people can afford me. You know what I'm talking about? And if someone ever, whether it's a private gig, whether it's a party or at a bar, or someone hiring you to teach their kids or teach them, if someone ever has issues with how much you're charging, they cannot afford you. And you can tell them that. Tell them you can't afford me, and I'm not talking about money. There's nothing more offensive than a rich person hearing that, because rich people like to think they can afford almost anything. So when they have some artist who has the audacity to know their worth and tell you can't afford them, that makes them rethink a lot of things. First of all, they're either gonna think you're crazy, which they might, but let them. So who cares? Go off to the next family. Or they're gonna rethink their values, and they're gonna rethink you, because they're gonna think like, wow, he knows his worth. He knows his values. Moving on. Start teaching. Yeah. First of all, teaching is reoccurring income. You know, gigging is wonderful. Gigging is awesome, and it's great. And, you know, it can be a high. It can totally be a high. I remember when I was like 18, 19, I would play at the clubs, and I remember like a dance floor full of people just getting down and just dancing and sweating, you know, from how hard they're dancing. And I remember playing the piano and looking at them, and I remember thinking, gosh, man, I'm making them dance. Like, my talent is making them move, you know, and it was a high, you know. But also, I got to tell you, the downside of being only performing musician is that once the gig is over, you got to keep hustling. And so when I was like 25, that was like the last year that I was like a professional musician, because I was tired of the hustle. I was tired of it, and I wanted something that was more steady, but I wasn't willing to go outside of my field either. So then teaching was the natural next step. And people think that, you know, people who can't do teach. First of all, please excuse my language, but that's some fucking bullshit. I will never put my kid to a teacher who can't do it. You know, why? Why would you do it? And it's also super ignorant, you know. It's so many teachers who I know, professors, were the best in their field. I remember when I was a freshman, my teacher was like, I worked for Exxon, because I lived in Texas, so we were gas and oil and energy and gas. She was like, I worked in Exxon for 30 years, and now I'm a freshman, you know, chemistry teacher. And I was like, that's cool. She comes from a place where this information is applicable, you know. And then my 10th grade teacher, she was an engineer at NASA for 30 years, and then she retired and she became the physics teacher. So I was just like, yeah, hell yeah, these people know what it's about, and these people come from fields where this knowledge is actually applicable. So don't ever think that you're above teaching. You're not. And if you think that you're above teaching, then you need to be like, continue being a musician so that you can finally learn. If honestly, if you think you're above teaching, you're not that good of a musician, in my opinion. Like, and also, you know, me spiritually, that's just my personal choice. I'm a spiritual person. I feel like teaching is actually the next evolutionary step when you're a musician, Because yes, you're a master fisher. You are the best fisher in the world. Okay, now it's time to teach someone else how to fish. So I mean, what are you gonna do? Collect bass and then sell them for $300 a fish? I mean, you could do that if you were a selfish asshole. I don't know. Maybe I should be more of a selfish asshole. I think I'm doing fine as a teacher. That's just my opinion. I don't think, when COVID came, a lot of people were fired. A lot of my friends who were only performers were fired. And I have friends who were actors in Los Angeles. I watch on Netflix and I'm like, there's Jade, there's John, there's Lamarian. I know these people. You go to New York, you watch, what's that show that the South Park people did? The Book of Mormon. I'll watch the Book of Mormon on Broadway. I'm like, there's Delius, there's Joy, So I'm like, I know these people. But then when COVID came, all of them lost their jobs. All of them lost their jobs. Except for me, because I was a teacher, And so during COVID, I would teach, I didn't lose my job. So during COVID, I taught online for a little bit, but I knew in the bottom of my heart that parents are not trying to parents love their kids, but parents are not trying to spend 24 hours a day with their children. Okay, not everyone's a teacher. Teaching takes time. Teaching takes patience. It takes compassion, not just the skill. It takes a certain amount of certain kinds of qualities to actually be a good teacher. So, when I knew those parents didn't want to teach their kids. And they felt bad making their kids sit in front of the computer. So COVID happened, in March of 2020? That's when lockdown happened. Girl, by June, I was already back physically at their houses teaching them. Because I knew those parents were tired of their kids. And who can blame them? Who can blame them? So teaching didn't go away for me, I mean, eventually it kind of did, and I'm actually switching careers now. But when COVID happened, it just made me really think hard about the value of teaching, because when any economy hits hard, whether it's a school system or the entire freaking world in a pandemic, the arts is always the first to go. But why didn't I lose my job? You know what I mean? So go into teaching, all right? Next, start. Oh, 8, get a certification. Yes, get a certification. Okay, now I'm going to be transparent. I don't have any certification. I went to school for 2 years at the University of the Arts in Philadelphia, and then I quit because, one, I was already a musician. I mean, I was in 10th grade touring the United States with Grammy Award-winning musicians. So when I went to college, I felt like people were like training and learning how to be what I already was. Like from 16 to 23, when I was in my school years, the only time I wasn't a professional musician when I was in college learning how to be a professional musician. So then, I would live in Philadelphia at that time, and I would go to New York. I would take the Chinatown bus to New York City, and I would audition for jobs. And then I got a job, and I was like, sweet, this is my ticket to leave. So then I got a job in New York, and then I quit school after 2 years of living in Philadelphia. But the point is, that's me. Like, I devoted my life to music. So not everyone is going to have that same story, has that same passion. I literally devoted my whole life. I've almost died for my craft. Literally, I have almost died for my craft. So, not everyone's going to have that same story. So if you're not that, and, me, I didn't need a certification because, man, my product spoke for itself. My product was my mind. My product was my ability, my skill, and it didn't take long for a mother or a father, or a bar owner or a restaurant owner or, whatever, to see that I knew what the hell I was doing, whether it be performing or teaching, so I just had so much confidence. And I'm not even a confident guy, but when it came to music, I had no choice but to be confident because that's all I devoted to. People would do basketball and baseball and art and golf and pageants or whatever, and then they would do music on the side. Me, after school was done, I did music, then music, and then more music. On the weekends, I did music, so like that's a different situation. But if you're starting out and you want to do this, go to a community college and get some type of certification. Go to anything, honestly, anything that offers some type of certification in music and get it, if it's easy. And if you can go to college and get a degree, then fine, go ahead and do that. I don't know if it's worth all that money getting into debt, I personally, I don't know if it's worth it for you, and if you have a means of doing it, then by far, go ahead and do it. But if that's not the road for you, you should definitely go to a community college, go to a junior college, somewhere that's cheap, somewhere that offers quick certification, just to get something under your belt. When parents hire you, or when anyone hires you, they're gonna want to know, like, what is your background. And if you can't just show up with your instrument and just kill it and just show them on your instrument, yeah, I know what the hell I'm doing. If you're not that type of person, then you're going to need a killer resume. Then you're going to need, if you want to teach a class, then you're going to need to have some type of accreditation, some type of certification. And it's not hard to get. Like I said, you can go, they offer in community college, you can get an associate's degree. There's a lot of different things. I never got those degrees, but that's because I devoted my life from 8 years old when I first picked up that trumpet, when I was in band, to now, I'm 37, and nowadays I feel like I spend more time firing people than I do anything else. Man, anyway, let me not get into it. Just get a certification. It'll really, really help. It'll look better. You'll learn things that you didn't know. During your certification training, you might learn how to read music. They might ask you to throw on recitals. They might ask you to do a lot of different things. Okay, number 9. Move to a place that supports the arts. Yeah. I grew up in Houston, Texas. Houston is the 4th largest city in the United States. There are 4 million residents in Houston. So I was very lucky. Houston has a huge Latino community, has a huge arts community in general. So I was always, supported in the arts. And when it was hard for me to get jazz gigs, classical gigs, then I would go turn to my Latino community, and they would hire me for salsa gigs, merengue gigs, rumba, whatever. So, it helped, and it made me ready to go to New York and actually do it. In some ways, my dreams didn't pan out in New York because I had huge dreams. I wanted to actually be a songwriter for like Lady Gaga, Katy Perry. Like that's where kind of my goals were. And when I left New York, I thought I was a failure because I didn't achieve that. But I didn't give myself the credit for everything else I did, because while I was struggling trying to get a publishing deal in New York, I was playing Broadway. I was playing for musicians every day. I was playing for producers, agents, artists. I was playing I was doing shows. So I did a lot of things. And for me, I didn't give myself that credit because it's something I had been doing since I was 16. So I didn't give the self credit that I should have given myself. So yeah, but the point is that when I moved to New York, man, I found so much work. I mean, it's because it's a city that supports the arts. So you want to live in Los Angeles. You want to live in a place that supports the arts. You want to live in France. You want to live in Miami. You want to live in Tokyo. You want to live, in Rome. You want to live in big cities that support the arts, where it's very important to them, Yeah. Okay, last one. Join an agency. Yeah, that's a good one. Okay, so if you think you're at the point where you're professional enough to actually join an agency, do it. Go find an agency and audition for them. It's really easy. Now, this brings me actually back to number 1, because I remember when I was 24, 25, I auditioned for this agency in New York. This brings me back to number 1, knowing how to read music. They were like, "What kind of a musician are you?" And I said, "I can do whatever you want me to do." That's what they're looking for. They want a musician that has that confidence. You say, I can do whatever you want me to do. So they're like, oh, really? So they sent me this packet of music like this thick. And they're like, let me know as soon as you get the packet. So I called them on Tuesday. I was like, hey, I got the packet. They're like, okay, so your audition's on Thursday, or I'm going to interview you over the phone. I had like 46 hours to learn that entire packet of music. And I did it, so, but that's what I'm saying. That's all those years in the works, in the making. And then I auditioned for that agency, and then I got the agency, which is good. So what that means is a lot of those professional entities, so Disney, Universal, Warner Brothers, cruise lines, anything that throws on professional productions, they want professional musicians. So I never actually did any of that stuff. I remember signing on to the agency, and then like less than a year later, I moved home. I moved back to Houston because I got really scared. I was already 25, and I was honestly scared of growing old and hustling. That's just me. I don't know. I don't want to get too personal, but my dad was a professional musician, but he was only a salsa player. He didn't know a lot about harmony. He didn't know about jazz. He didn't know about classical music. He didn't know how to sing. He didn't know how to play guitar. He didn't know other instruments. He didn't know other genres. So he was very, 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 very limited. So my dad was a salsa musician. He was such an amazing musician, but then he also had a day job, and it was because he wasn't versatile enough. He didn't adapt. And so growing up and watching that kind of scared me. And so when I was 25, I was like, I can only hustle and live and travel like a vagabond for so long until it's not cute anymore. It's fine and adventurous when you're 21, but it's not cute when you're 40 years old. What was the point? Oh, joining an agency. Yeah. I'm so sorry. I got lost. I don't know what I'm sorry. But the point is you want something that's very, very solid and consistent, and joining an agency will definitely provide you with solid, consistent gigs. They will only, just like any other agency, they will send you invitations not to be in a production, but to audition to a production. These productions, if Disney came out and said, "Hey, we're gonna do Lion King live. We're gonna do Lion King in Chicago, and we're gonna hold auditions for piano players." Do you know how many fucking piano players they're going to be listening to? Hundreds, maybe thousands. So they want to narrow it down to people that they know that are talented, that they know are really professional, which is why they call the agencies. So that's why you want to be a part of an agency, is because you'll have the opportunity to audition for the really big things, right? And then the really big things that you get, it's a lot of fun. You get to travel the world, you get to travel whatever, yeah. So when I moved back to Houston and I became a teacher full time, for like the next 5-6 years, every month I got an invitation to audition for something going on in New York, or maybe like a cruise line, like Princess Cruise Lines, or something going on in Los Angeles. There's a movie going on. They need musicians or something, they need studio musicians. And so it was awesome, and it was like really good for my ego too, because I was thinking, man, that's cool, Andrew. You are a teacher now, and you're living a lot more stable of a lifestyle, and you're loving what you do, but just so you still got that edge. You still got it. It was nice to know from my ego that, I can still quit my job today and I could still go on to, like, even now I'm 37 and I'm actually switching my career entirely. I'm moving into something non-musical, and it was really cool because I reached out to all my friends and I was like, hey, just letting you know, I'm wondering if I should do something musical again. And I got so many invitations to, like I said, that Yale job in China. Yale's sending some people to China to throw a production, and I got invited. So joining an agency is just the coolest thing. You get invited to audition for the coolest things. I did not think this was gonna be a 50-minute video, but here we are. So I was gonna edit it too. Freak that! I'm not gonna edit no 50-minute video. So, like I said, if enough people will watch this video, if I get a lot of requests, then I actually probably will make a book out of it. I'd rather make a video out of it and just test the water to see how much reception it gets. I don't know if it gets any reception. So, yeah. So when it boils down to it, practice, network, be multi-talented. That would be the biggest thing. Practice, network, be multi-talented, go into teaching. Because teaching is a wonderful job. It's a spiritual job. It is something that'll raise your personal vibration. You're doing something beautiful by spreading knowledge. You're teaching people how to fish. All right, guys. Love you. Bye.